You always think about fatigue as being quite literally burning out. You've got all your different tanks for energy, for joy, for vitality, etc., and everything's gone. And you just feel fatigued, you lose your zest for life, you feel like you don't really want to get up in the morning, you're so tired. And I think that's probably the first indicator, or maybe even the last actually, Neeta, that it's time to do something about it. People just want to feel like they did 10, 20 years ago. And that's why most people come to me, is they just say, can't do what I used to be able to do.
Are you mamas constantly tired, or you can't slow down? Are you feeling bloated or foggy, like this mental fog or brain fog that won't go away? Maybe you're snapping at the closest people to you. Maybe you're irritable. You're wondering why does my body feel like it's betraying me? Okay, if you're nodding your head, you're not alone. Now, you're probably carrying what my next guest calls the mother load. And it's not just about raising kids. It's the invisible, emotional, mental, and hormonal weight and changes and fluctuations that can happen as we kind of get older. And so many high-performing women carry this in silence. So today I'm sitting down with the brilliant and the bold Dr. Jenna Burton. She's a UK-trained medical doctor, personal trainer, longevity specialist, and total powerhouse. And she heads the Zoime clinic here in Dubai, who's also our exclusive sponsor. And she's here to pull back the curtain on burnout, gut health, perimenopause, and the quiet signals that your body's been begging you to say, hey, pay attention to me. So pour that chai, get cozy, and let's talk about the messy and beautiful aspects of womanhood and motherhood with the amazing Jenna Burton this week. Hello there.
Hello, Neeta.
Oh my goodness. So we've had some fun. I've learned so much about my health in the last 4 months sitting with you, and I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, because I feel like as women, as mothers, we're powering through so much of our days. Can you tell us what are some of the signs that perhaps maybe a lot of clients who come into your field, whether it's, they reach you online, whether they come in person to you, because you've trained over, thousands of people across the globe. And, when we're fried, foggy, and just not okay, what could be some of the underlying conditions of burnout that we may not know?
I think the first thing is fatigue. So you said burnout. You always think about fatigue as being quite literally burning out. You've got all your different tanks for energy, for joy, for vitality, etc., and everything's gone. And you just feel fatigued, you lose your zest for life, you feel like you don't really want to get up in the morning, you're so tired. And I think that's probably the first indicator, or maybe even the last actually, Neeta, that it's time to do something about it. People just want to feel like they did 10, 20 years ago. And that's why most people come to me, is they just say, can't do what I used to be able to do. And it's funny because obviously I see men and women, and the men, they will talk more about performance and how it used to be, how they used to be able to go to the gym so many times a week, etc. Whereas for women, they tend to talk about the fact that they just don't want to get up in the morning. And I think it's probably because of the load. We carry quite a lot of load, don't we, with regards to juggling family, careers, etc.
Yeah, so, okay, now, why is the mother load going far beyond than just parenthood and womanhood? Obviously, there's so many things, but when we're talking about it in terms of a clinician and as a medical trained doctor, obviously you've infused your practice to not only be the medical and or Western medicine, to now having this more functional approach. What can moms do who are actually carrying that mother load when they maybe have this idea that, okay, I have to do something with my health? What could that look like?
So it's so different depending on the individual person, and it depends on what way you look. Like, number one, the undercurrent to all of us is our psychology. And you're talking about it from a clinical perspective, but you can't forget that we're humans at the end of it, and that our brain, our gut, everything is linked. So how we're feeling from a psychological perspective is so important. I can't tell you how many people I've investigated with severe pain or with ongoing fatigue, mental fog, etc. And when you start delving that little bit deeper, just scratch beneath the surface, the eyes will prick and they'll start to cry, and you realise that there's a huge psychological element. So that's one part. So you kind of have to address that as alongside, in parallel with everything else that you're looking at. And then you need to say, right, let's do some diagnostics. When was the last time we had some lab results? Like just the basics first. And there are some people that might say 10 years. Every year we should be doing our basic labs. If nothing else, check your thyroid, check, most women do tend to lie on the area of anemia. That's going to cause great fatigue, general lethargy, you might have a little bit of pallor, etc. So check those first. And then it's going the next step. Are you doing your oncology screening? Is there anything else going on that we should know about? Are you doing, whether it be a full MRI or looking for circulating tumour markers, or even taking a step back and just saying, right, are you at least doing a breast ultrasound scan, mammogram, etc. And then there's a whole world of functional testing, and that would include cycle mapping, Dutch test, looking at your hormone levels, because that has such a huge impact, especially for women. I'd say women's testosterone, for instance, tends to drop from the age of 20. It starts to go down. Men, they're kind of preserved until around 30, and then it starts to drop off a little bit. So we need to look at these things before we can say, let's jump in with a treatment plan. We need to know what's going on under the surface first.
Yeah. Well, and I'm guessing that, because we've had these conversations offline, and I mean, you're one of the first and few doctors that when we've grabbed time together, you know, obviously in a medical related session, it's more like a 2-hour block of time. I remember that first time, that first consultation, and it's a 2-hour block of time where, you know, traditional medicine, it's like 10 minutes. All right, what are all of these things? So what is that philosophy at Zoime?
The philosophy is not to just look at you in like a unilateral direction, and it is to see you as a whole. We have 7 different pillars, which includes things such as diagnostics, movement, nutrition, supplements, psychology, and then obviously your health side as well. And we are not beings that just move like sort of in one plane. We are a 360-degree person, and everything in the body interlinks with another part. I can't give somebody a tablet, for instance, and not expect it to have a knock-on effect elsewhere. And I think as practitioners, one of our flaws, and we've got many, but one of our flaws is that historically we would always treat people for how we see them within that 10-minute. Maybe if you're lucky, you might get 30-minute session with somebody. And it's so short-sighted, because if we want to really map something out for somebody in the long term, I need to kind of know how everything's working. You know, when I worked in ICU years and years ago.
Oh my goodness.
One of the best things about it, though, Neeta, was you get all the information. They'd get their bloods done every day. You knew what everything was doing. You knew what the cells were doing day by day, minute by minute, pretty much. Less than the NHS, but anyway. And one of the beauties now is within a clinic, we have that ability with trackers, with labs, with these functional health tests. We have so much more information on you than we ever had before. Before it was just verbal consults, which were good. And I still think, like you said, we spend hours talking. That's still really important. But if you can then add the data piece to it, it just becomes even more precise. It's precision medicine.
Right. Well, and so now, as somebody who helps people regulate their bodies, how do you catch yourself when you're on the edge of depletion? Because you're a mom of 3 as well. What does your internal check-in sound like? And do you have a gauge for, you know, even women kind of going through, if they're like, okay, I've been waking up with this thing, or like, you know, night sweats at night, or just I'm so voraciously hungry that nothing satiates me. So, and how do we then start to think of, okay, what are the steps for me to check in?
Absolutely, because you know what, as practitioners, people think that you live perfectly all year round, and it's so not true. Like likewise, I am as a victim to burnout as anybody else, and sometimes I spend so long talking to people about screening, getting tests done, and then when it comes to my own, sometimes you think, well, I haven't got time, I've got children. You can't expect something from somebody that you're not prepared to do yourself. And I know that when I start working through the night, I had an episode recently where I was, you know, I had lots going on, obviously sort of like juggling a role which is clinical, but there's also like a management aspect as well. And sometimes it can be quite difficult to do that. And then if my children's dad is away, then I'm doing a lot more of the mothering, and that it can be a fine line to balance. So what I do now that I never used to do is I always schedule downtime. That's number one. I make sure when I feel I'm getting fatigued that I recognise, even if I'm feeling good, that's not sustainable, and I schedule the downtime. And number two, if I start to get symptoms like hot flashes and things like that, I recognise that, you know what, taking that time out is not selfish to go and get checked. And likewise, I always go to an external practitioner, because it's very easy if you're sort of self-diagnosing and looking at things that you can sort of dismiss and think, oh, it's fine, it's okay. You need somebody else to sort of check back. And you know what? Listen to your gut instinct. We always know when something's not quite right. We know deep down. Otherwise, we wouldn't start thinking about it in the first place.
Yeah, this is huge. And, you know, and I want to kind of double click on some of the tests that you guys do at Zoime. And first of all, before I get into it, why the idea of Zoime Longevity Clinic, and how does this differ from a lot of, you know, some of the other ones that people can maybe access to globally? And I know you guys also do, you know, virtual things as well with clients that travel. So talk to us about that, and how can it actually help our mamas?
Longevity is such a buzzword at the moment, and I spoke recently about it becoming a bit of a fashion trend. But the reality is, what we're really looking at doing is using data and feeding it into how we practice and look after people. Now, we don't need to see somebody day in, day out to have access to that data. We can send tests to people, we can be collecting it from their trackers even remotely, and that's the beauty, isn't it, of technology. And I'd say what's different about us is that we are data driven. So albeit we're still having consults, we're still speaking to people, it's that data that's feeding what we're doing in our decision making. Actually, I have to say it makes my job a lot easier because of that data. And
the data comes from the blood work.
And it doesn't matter, exactly, and it doesn't matter where anybody is in the world. There's always free access. So I always make myself, and I know the other practitioners at Zoime, we make ourselves exceptionally accessible to anybody. And all right, there can be a bit of a time difference, but that doesn't really make too much of a difference, because we just schedule in a time that works for both of us. It's not unusual for me to take calls sort of late at night, early in the morning to accommodate those people overseas. And then what we do is we act as the people that direct the care. And if there's anything that we need additionally, either when they come to Dubai, they do it, or we write to their doctors and ask them for what it is that we're looking for.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, and this is so important, because you are the one that educated me around the importance of thyroid health as anybody that is over the age of 35. And how does that differ, you know, because you also mentioned kind of cycle mapping and women's cycle mapping. And I feel like we only get into that when we're actually thinking about babies or having our, you know, first, second, whatever, third, growing our families. So can you take us through that process?
Well, there's two different things you mentioned there. So thyroid affects a lot of women especially, but men are not. They're not sort of spared from having thyroid problems. And thyroid's your setting of your metabolism. So it depends on what kind of, I always say it's like being on the car and kind of what speed you're going to set the car at. It's exactly the same. Your thyroid hormones will set how fast your heart beats, how quickly you metabolize things, how quickly your GI system works. It affects everything, how awake you are. Set it too high or too low, you're going to have problems. Too low, you're going to get constipation, dry skin, feel fatigued. Set it too high, shaky, heart's beating too quickly, you could end up with arrhythmias. So it's really, really important to how you feel, but also physiologically, how your body's working. So in a lot of places, especially traditional clinical medical places, they would just look for TSH. That's your thyroid stimulating hormone, and it won't actually look at your thyroid levels, which are T4 and T3. And quite a lot of people might have enough T4 but not enough T3, which is a conversion disorder. And actually just giving them a little helping hand for their T3 can make them feel so much better and give them some more energy. And it is the most simple test. That is just one quick lab test. And if you do need to have any adjustments, it's so easy to manage. So it's super easy to manage and it's simple to test for, so why wouldn't you?
Right.
That's that number one. Now, number two, I'd say that generally when we're looking at menopause and hormonal shifts, especially as we come to the end of our 30s, early 40s, we wait for symptoms.
And what are those symptoms?
Well, everyone knows the hot flashes, but actually it's one of the later ones.
Okay.
Memory problems tends to be quite big. Feeling brain fog. Anxiety is huge. Low mood and anxiety can be some of the biggest. Insomnia, not sleeping at night, feeling little bit restless. These are the ones that people will traditionally come in and tell me. Now, the other ones that we don't think about so much, things like joint pain. If your estrogen starts to drop, you basically lose a lot of water in your body. It's hydrating. Also, it will slow down the enzymes that are breaking down collagen on a regular basis. So people will say that they feel their skin's changing and their hair is thinning. And people don't realise what a huge impact our hormones or sex hormones have on us. Likewise as well, estrogen helps with our cholesterol levels, and as our estrogen goes up, our cardioprotective cholesterol goes up, and as estrogen comes down, our less cardioprotective or the LDL cholesterol goes up, and our HDL, which is our cardioprotective cholesterol, goes down. So it affects everything. And I say to people, why do you wait for symptoms? Just because that's what we've always done doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do. You can cycle map, which means looking at urine samples, which is where our hormones are more accurate, day in, or it's about 5 days throughout your cycle.
Okay.
And you can actually see how you're metabolizing your progesterone, your estrogen, your testosterone, and actually what levels you are at. That then means that you can supplement in a physiological dose, so not taking somebody over what is considered physiologically normal, but just topping them up a little bit before those symptoms come in.
With testosterone?
It can be with estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
Okay.
I find that testosterone tends to be one of the first that drops. And again, it's not considered clinical medicine to give you testosterone before estrogens and progesterone. Because you don't want to androgynize somebody, you don't want to turn them into a man.
Right.
However,
especially if you're kind of like gonna still have babies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But yet, actually giving the tiniest, I would say like a little lick of testosterone for people that are suffering with symptoms, and you can see on diagnostic tools that show that the testosterone is a little bit low, giving them that little bit. Gosh, the amount of messages I get from people saying they feel amazing, they feel so much better, they've got that bit more energy, and it's tiny. We're talking really small doses.
And so I want to kind of stop you right there and really go into and just kind of recap. So if the testosterone's low, for anybody who's listening or watching this on YouTube, then you will have these symptoms of kind of the fatigue, right?
Yeah, so quite typically people will say they start to get a bit of weight gain, they feel a bit fatigued.
Okay, so the weight gain, they're not able to kind of get the weight off, right? They're doing everything, they're eating right, but they can't get the weight off. So maybe that's a sign that testosterone is low.
Yes.
Correct?
They might say as well when they're going to the gym, they're not recovering in the same way. Mental cognition is one of the big ones. Now, there are a few studies that show that testosterone doesn't have an impact on memory or on cognition. All I can say is I see people day in, day out, and that is not what is reported back to me.
Okay.
Sometimes I don't even tell them that this is what to expect. They tell me first. So it is something that we recognise testosterone as being good for. But for those that will say, oh, but the science says differently, I get that. The research is a little bit lagging behind it, but that's what we see day in, day out.
Interesting. So, and then let's talk about, let's double click on this, the thyroid piece as well.
Yeah.
Because, so yes, we can supplement testosterone. So if women kind of, when they're in their baby making phase and their kind of thyroid is going through a whole havoc, why is it that their thyroid is going through the whole havoc of things? And can we talk about the antibodies as well?
Yeah. So basically, a lot of people can actually have what's considered normal thyroid levels, but their body is still making thyroid antibodies or antibodies against the thyroid. And the issue with that is that you're still going to get inflammation, and the inflammation is going to give you symptoms. It could be physical symptoms, or it could just be inside that you feel generally fatigued, not quite yourself, you feel heavy, you're not feeling light. And so it's really important that we address those antibodies too.
Because it's inflamed.
Yeah, because you've got an inflammation there. Now, why is that happening? Around the time that you're looking at having a baby, if you start on your pregnancy journey, the body now needs to do more, because not only are you working for you, but you're also trying to create a whole other human inside. So the thyroid is being asked to do more, and it's very common for people that are pregnant, for instance, to have thyroid issues. And it's one of the reasons, as a mum, I'm sure you remember, and I remember, it was one of the things they would always check is your thyroid, because people might fall underactive or even overactive during that pregnancy journey.
But it doesn't mean that you have hypo or hyper.
You may do,
okay,
but it would depend on the results.
Okay.
So most commonly people will fall hypo actually during pregnancy because it's not increasing in the way that it should. But that's not always the case. It can go both ways. Likewise, your immune system is hyperactive when you are, it's trying to compensate and push off any disease when you are pregnant. And because it's trying to keep you and the body safe. So that's why, again, you can be more prone to getting inflammation, etc. So it is a particular pivotal time, but I wouldn't say it ends at the pregnancy phase. For whatever reason, and I don't know the reason, but your thyroid generally, as women especially, and men get older, it tends to be the piece of the puzzle that starts to struggle that little bit. And like I say, it's something very simple. When you have Hashimoto's, which is where you've got antibodies against the thyroid gland, it is a little bit more tricky to manage. And in functional medicine, we will deal a lot with trying to help you using selenium, zinc, etc. within your, so one in your diet and also with supplements. And occasionally we'll also go for medicines. But it's definitely something that you don't want to ignore because of the way that it will make you feel. Even if your basic labs look normal, if you just scratch beneath that surface, maybe there is something else going on.
Right. And sometimes it could even be other indications like mold or gut health.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? So I had a patient recently that was worried about why they had inflammation for their thyroid gland, and they were concerned that it might be their gut causing it. Absolutely. If you've got inflammation in the body, it tends to be what we call pan-inflammation. So once you have an area that's inflamed, you've got a release of interleukins and cytokines that will also cause inflammation elsewhere. And it's really important that we dampen everything down. Now, one approach could be, let's do some GI mapping. Let's see, have we got any viruses that's going on in our stomach? Have we got any bacteria that's going on? Is there anything else there?
So viruses like Epstein-Barr?
Potentially, yeah.
People are talking about this Epstein-Barr. What is it and why is that important?
Epstein-Barr virus, it's part of the mononuclear virus, if you've heard of it. So I used to always think about glandular fever, and you'd get that child as a teenager that would have the big, thick neck.
Tonsils or something.
Yeah. They would feel absolutely terrible. I'll never forget my high school sweetheart. He had it, and I couldn't go near him for months. So yeah, nowadays it is making a bit of a re-emergence as we get a little bit older as well.
Right.
And the sad thing is, clinically, there's not actually loads that you can do because it's a virus. You have to kind of just support the body in whatever other way that you can in order to get through it. But if people are suffering with that chronic fatigue, along with adrenal fatigue, it's one of the things that you would check for. And it's quite simple. Again, it's usually a blood test that you would look for. But yeah, it's not really as if it's got a causative nature. It comes by, you support your body and you get through. And sometimes people that are suffering with recurrent tonsillitis, it's actually not a bacterial tonsillitis, it can be Epstein-Barr tonsils basically as well. So that would be another sort of heads up that someone might have EBV.
Interesting. So what's the issue with modern medicine and gaslighting women when they say they have all of these like symptoms and I've just heard so many stories, countless stories of women going in, they're asking about kind of, maybe they're in the middle of perimenopause and or menopause, or, they haven't really fully lost their period yet. It's maybe intermittent, it's kind of like sporadic, maybe they're at the end of their 40s, maybe they're at the end of their 30s. And modern medicine, or kind of like your traditional medicine, will just kind of gaslight them and just slap a prescription and be done, or, oh, it's part of aging. Brave Table fam, if you've had this happen, please tag us, cut this snippet out and tag us. Let us know for sure if that was your experience. Why do they do that? And what are you guys trying to do at Zoime that is different?
First of all, I've got to speak in defense of the modern medicine, or old school clinical medicine more so, because that's just the way that we're trained. It's the way that we're trained. I wouldn't say that we're purposely trying to gaslight anyone. And I could also say, hand on heart, have I been there and just reassured somebody in the past? Oh, it's just aging. And yeah, absolutely, because we didn't have an answer. And actually, a lot of the functional side of medicine now, as clinicians, we are taught to be dubious of it. We're taught to be cautious. For instance, let's look at HRT and BHRT, so bioidentical hormones against a synthetic HRT. A lot of clinicians are totally against bioidentical, even though it is closer to what the body makes and it is personalised. However, it doesn't have the mass years of data behind it, so we're automatically going to put it at arm's length and say, this can't be right, we need to make sure that we have all the data. So I don't think that clinicians that tell women, oh, they're there, it's okay, on your way, I don't think it's their fault. It's just the training that they've been exposed to. And sadly, our symptoms have changed faster than the medicine has changed to support our symptoms. We are not accepting anymore that it's okay to just age and just lie down and think, oh, never mind, I'm just going to stop doing this now, I'll stop doing that, I'll just, I'll reduce my working hours. It's not an option for us anymore, Neeta. Like, we've got loads to live still within our 40s, our 50s and beyond. And so we're demanding more of ourselves. And therefore, as a consequence, we've had to demand more from healthcare. And I think that's why that healthcare has changed. It's nobody's fault that the medicine has been a little bit late to the table, but it's getting there. And I would say, if I compare 10 years ago looking at functional medicine, I also probably would have poo-pooed it. And nowadays, I've completely embraced it, and I think I wish this had been around longer. And one by one, each clinician is opening their eyes and seeing it too.
Yes, okay. Well, let's talk about gut health, because apparently, there is a huge skyrocket of gut issues and inflammation, and it's one of the things that you all treat at Zoime. So let's talk about what those symptoms can be, and what is, if somebody is listening to this saying, I have high sensitivity, because you also do food sensitivity testing as well. But if I have high sensitivity and I was able to, have milk before, or cheese before, or gluten before, why is it that a lot of women are now not able to process gluten, like in their late 30s and early 40s? I'm one of them. You told me to stop eating gluten so that I can protect my thyroid. And so can you tell us why gluten is not a good thing for, even if we're living in Europe?
If I was to do a panel of about 100 people and look at their food sensitivities, I would say 95 would come back gluten intolerant, dairy intolerant, egg white intolerant, which I find interesting because very few people actually complain about them. And it's not something I'd say give up in a flash. And the other would be peas. But generally, everybody is gluten and dairy intolerant. I don't think it's something that we're meant to have, and it does cause inflammation. And whereas we might have got away with it when we were younger, as we get older, we don't have that contingency anymore. We tend to get symptoms a lot more readily, and the body can't compensate for the level of inflammation.
What are those symptoms?
Gut issues tend to revolve around gas, bloating, belching.
Belching is not normal?
Belching,
what?
To an extent, it depends how much.
It's like every Indian auntie, like I go to these houses and every Indian uncle is like,
if you're belching more than what is normal for you, passing a lot of gas, having a real pot belly that maybe wasn't there yesterday and has suddenly developed. And it's usually the inflammation of the gut tends to not come from the ribs, but a little bit lower, so maybe just above the umbilicus. And that can be the sign of a really angry gut, passing mucus, maybe having very quick transit of your stools, having undigested stools, etc. And it's so common. But one of the things I'd say I see more than anything is actually reflux. And people always associate reflux as being this burning, like having this burning pain. And, but I don't really get a sore throat or a cough or anything that we also associate with reflux. But you can get silent reflux, and that means that the stomach is really angry. And if you think about it, alcohol, smoking, caffeine, stress are all gastric irritants. And a lot of people will take that in, day out.
Coffee.
Yeah,
Coffee.
The double espresso on an empty stomach is, I get it, from a gym goers, and obviously if I was to put my gym side on, I get it, it can help with performance, it gets you going, it can help with the process of sort of going through the motions of heavy weights and cardio, etc. But for the stomach itself, it makes it quite angry. And what happens when you've got a really angry stomach, it throws off loads of gas into the gut. that will cause the stomach to expand, makes it quite angry. You get that prickly feeling within your stomach, start passing more mucus, your stools aren't working as they used to. And people don't realise that when the stomach is inflamed, your GI system is so long. When it's inflamed, it can just make you feel lethargic, sleepy, particularly sleepy. And sometimes people feel like, I don't really want to eat, but I feel like I should. If the stomach's telling you not to eat, don't eat, let it settle. It's asking for breathing space.
Right.
And that's why intermittent fasting can work so well as well for gut health. That, prebiotics, probiotics, fermented foods.
Yeah. I mean, these are, but it's like, do we do it, Brave Tape fam? Are we doing it? Are we doing that every day? It's such a journey in healing our gut.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
I read a really scary statistic about anything that's in your gut can stay there for like a month or two on end, which is a really long time. Think about it though. If you've ever had an upset stomach, you've eaten something and it didn't agree with you, it takes a long time for that stomach to settle down. A long time, because there's still remnants. You've still got, your gut, when it inflames, it basically opens up and it causes a gap between the cell walls, and that's when you can get toxins, etc., in your body, and it can cause a pan inflammation elsewhere. So it takes a long time.
And that's the leaky gut.
That's the leaky gut, yes.
Okay, so you've said that longevity isn't just about years. Now, what does that mean to you personally? Because I know you're an advocate of lifting weights and working out and protein. So talk to us a little bit about that.
We're not talking about lifespan, we're talking about a health span. And if I was to use a personal example, I saw my grandma live till she was 95. And I would say she was very lucky in that for 93 of those years, she was in amazing health. She could still walk, she went out every day and she lived alone. That's the kind of life that you want. The last 2 years were pretty awful to watch because, she crumbled. But you know what? Until the last day that she could, I would see her standing up and sitting down. I'd say, what are you doing, Grandma? Just keeping my legs active, just so I can keep getting up and getting down. And I wholeheartedly believe that's why she was active for so long. Yeah. And I think we need to replicate that day to day. If you look at a lot of cultures, they will sit with folded legs to eat their meals. And as a byproduct of that, their mobility is better and they can sit and get up from the ground for a lot longer than most people that use chairs and tables. Now, I'm not about to get rid of my table anytime soon, start sitting on the floor, though I know friends that have actually done that. However, if we replicate the movements that we want to make in old age now, it will be easier. Now, I know you're friends with Gabrielle Lyon, or you've done work with her, etc.
She was actually on the show, and we'll link her episode in the show notes as well.
Yeah, so she's absolutely fantastic for talking about skeletal muscle, and I agree. I think skeletal muscle is so important for body composition, raising our metabolic rate, keeping us healthy. By taking in enough protein, it will feed those muscles, and it's not about looking jacked like my good friend Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just about functioning. However, one thing that I will say is that any movement, I believe, is better than none. And normally when I'm talking to my clients, I say, look, check in twice a week with every muscle group with weights if you can. And then everything else is free movement, just do something. Now, for some people, if they're really deep down not going to do that weight training, just do something. One step in the right direction is better than no steps. You can't just say, oh, well, that doesn't suit me, so I won't do anything at all. Take a step, and then actually as time goes on, you might find you're more inclined anyway.
Oh. So now someone's listening to this or they're watching this on YouTube and they're like, okay, what are the first 3 things that I should do as a busy working queen bee in my life, or I'm a busy mama, but I feel like I have been neglecting my health. I'm putting everybody else first. As we know, that is the truth. But there is something that has clicked. Either, they recognize with the fogginess in the brain, or just not as quick to respond, or maybe they're irritable, and all of these things, or they're feeling just like not themselves. What are the first 3 things that they can expect when they're booking a session with you guys?
So the first thing to expect is that we have a conversation, because I don't believe in ordering diagnostic tests that are not suited for you, because you might just go and get a whole plethora of tests, and actually some of them are not particularly relevant, and there are others that are missed that would be really relevant for you as an individual. So I need to know, what's your family history like? What are your symptoms? What have you had happen in the past? What are you worried about? And also, what do you want to achieve? So when we've had those kinds of discussions, we say, right, okay, these are the tests that we think that you should do. Obviously, if they're in Dubai, we do them all here. If they're overseas, we send the tests to them and they do them at home, and then we get them shipped back to us. When all the results are in, we sit down again and we say, right, let's have a chat. Let's go through all the results in depth, take our time and figure out what do we need to do to make you feel better. And then it's also about sort of mitigating what's their choice, because there are some people that, I mean, a really good example is somebody that smokes. Mm-hmm. I can't tell someone, look, there's all these different things that we can do, but ultimately it's not going to help you as much as just not smoking. But if they make that choice, that that's something that they want to keep in their life, I can educate them, but that's up to them. So anyway, once we've then decided, right, is this something that you can stick to? Be honest with yourself. Is this something that you can do? Then we make that plan. But number one is just accepting that it's not selfish to take that time to look into you.
Right.
Because I think, especially as mums, I have to say, the guilt associated with taking even that one moment out to do something for yourself when you could be doing something for them, you feel like that's selfish. But actually, if you're trying to make yourself the best version that you can be, that is everything for your children. And I get it, like it goes on in my head sometimes, and I have to power through and think, no, I will be a better mum on the back of it.
Right. So right. It's so huge. It's so huge. So that is, I feel like, such a pivotal reminder and permission for anybody that's watching this. I want to get into the spill the chai round, and I know that it's our rapid fire question. So
oh goodness!
As short as you want. The first thing that comes to mind before we wrap up, because I know you are also seeing patients as well. And now, for anyone that is curious, we'll also link. We have a special code for listeners at the Brave table, so it'll be Brave for a discount. So to come to Zoime Clinic, and we'll link that in the show notes. Where can people get a hold of you personally?
Me, so I'm on Instagram at Dr Jenna Burton, and then through Zoime as well. So they're at Zoime, that's ZOIME_.
Amazing. And Zoe means like overall health in Greece, right?
In Greek. Life. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So, and if you look, actually, all our branding's got the 3 lines. It's supposed to be the 3 lines from the palm of the hand.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
I love that. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
A patient experience that made you completely rethink what you thought you knew.
Ooh, I've got to be quick about this. Mm-hmm. There was a gentleman who was dying, actually, and he grabbed hold of my arm and he asked me what was going to happen. And I realised that sometimes it's okay to reassure someone even when you don't really know, because that's what we're told not to do. And in that moment, it seemed like it was the right thing to do.
I love that.
It's a bit of a sad one, though. Sorry, but it's the first one that came to my mind.
No, but I think it's a lot of times we don't talk about end of life, and I think there's so much beauty in that, to be with somebody as they're transitioning.
Yeah, it was
so powerful.
There's occasionally the odd patient that seeps through that you'll never forget, and that was a moment I'll never ever forget.
Oh, wow. One habit you swear by, or that you used to swear by, but now you've let go of completely?
I always drank from bottles. I just thought it was all about the water. I never thought about microplastics, and that's something that now I don't do.
Are you a Kangen girl?
What's a Kangen?
Kangen water? Okay.
No.
We'll have to bring you on the next one for that.
Voss.
Oh, Voss water, okay.
Yeah.
Wellness trend that you secretly love, and one you'd throw out in the bin.
One I'd throw out is the cold water plunges.
Oh gosh, yeah, women, we're not supposed to do that. Freezing.
Yeah, there's so many other reasons, but just generally I don't like the cold.
There's a lot of research coming out that women shouldn't be doing that.
And also men straight after training, anyone straight after training anyway. And then one that I couldn't live without, that I absolutely love, is creatine. Take your creatine, 5 milligrams a day, creatine monohydrate, absolutely, for cognition and performance.
Oof. That's something that I started doing religiously this year. Weirdest biohack hormone therapy that you've tried on yourself recently?
Hormone therapy.
Or peptides that you love?
Peptide, GHKCU, copper peptide, absolutely. It's my favourite. I talk about epithalon as actually being the most amazing biologically, but me personally, I just love the effects of copper peptide. It makes your skin glow.
Yeah, and for some people, they don't even use Botox after they use this GHKCU.
It's fantastic because it stimulates collagen elastin, especially good if you're going through the menopause.
Oh, and you guys do a whole list of peptides in the clinic as well.
Yeah.
So anybody can ask about that as well when they're talking to you.
That would also be one of my favourite biohacking
peptides.
Yeah, that we've got peptides.
What would your teenage self say to you now?
Well, I got a wave of emotion there when you asked it. Good on you. Because I think generally being a mum, it's tough, and especially when you're on your own and in a different country. And I think I try and give it my all.
So good. Dr. Jenna, you have such a plethora of knowledge. I'm so glad that honestly we've had this conversation and we're talking about what's really great for our bodies as women as we start kind of aging and, growing our babies alongside. So this was generally a masterclass in not only longevity, but health and mamas, females, ladies, and the amazing men that support them. Please encourage the women in your life to get their hormones tested. Zoime is fantastic and they work from around the world. This was a masterclass and a cozy heart-to-heart, and so I really want to thank you for your fire, your zest, your passion, your enthusiasm, and what you bring to the table at Zoime and just everywhere you go. So I just want to honor you with that. Is there anything that you want to leave with our audience today?
I just want to say, don't be afraid to look after you, because we all look after everybody else. And I'd say that usually we put ourselves at the end of the barrel, and whether that's financially or on time, we talked about time, but just don't forget, look after you.
And one word that describes this season of life?
This season of life, strength.
Love it. Wow. What a powerful, powerful episode. If you are watching this on YouTube but you haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It really, really helps us grow the show more than you know. Let us know what you loved most in the comments. Was there anything that Dr. Jenna kind of brightened your mind about that you can share with another person? Go ahead and tag your favorite moments, or maybe some that have changed your perspective in a way on Instagram. Tag myself, Dr. Jenna Burton, and the Brave Table on Instagram. Thank you so much for tuning in week after week, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to be a little bit more brave.
You know I've got so much more in store for you, so if you are really ready to dive in and keep owning your emotions like the boss that you are, click right here. Go ahead, don't be shy. I'll see you in the next one. Keep shining.